Welcome back once again to Skylanders in Smash. Today we're covering the cybernetic dragon with nigh infinite power, Drobot. A tech Skylander, Drobot eliminates his enemies by rapidly shooting lasers from his eyes and bladed gears from his wings. He's also yet another quadruped Skylander, which, as you all will come to realize as this series goes on, there are quite a few Skylanders that walk on all fours, the majority of which also having wings. Drobot is also considered to be the most overpowered Skylander by the community, so let's find out if he's just as powerful in Smash. The answer may surprise you. But before we start, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Now, Drobot's basic moveset is very fitting, as it's primarily a mixture of two Smash fighters' movesets, one being a dragon and the other being a robot. Now as to who they are, it's between two choices for the dragon fighter, Ridley or Charizard. I probably would have just picked one or the other, but one detail about Drobot caught my eye. His tail looks very pointy, even referred to as a spear by the wiki. Despite that, Drobot never uses it to attack. Based on what we've seen so far, Skylanders who mainly take out enemies at a distance don't tend to also fight up close, especially with their tails, if they've got one. But we do know a certain dragon with a pointy tail that he uses to skewer his opponents, although some of Charizard's moves may slip in from time to time. As for the robot fighter, who else could it be? It's Rob. So, let's detail what moves in particular are quote-unquote inspired by Ridley or Rob. As per usual, up first is the neutral attack, which is a choosable jab, but with a slight twist. The first two hits are nothing special, two claw swipes, but the third hit is where it gets interesting. The rapid jab is the same as Ridley's, a flurry of stabs from his tail. The standard, however, is Charizard's, where he attacks with one of his wings. This is our first instance of a choosable jab being created from two separate fighters. Moving on to the tilts, the forward and down tilt are taken straight from Ridley, a forward thrust and downward swipe with his tail, respectively. Up tilt is another move taken from Charizard, where he raises both of his wings to hit players. Next, the dash attack is a move that doesn't involve a dragon fighter, for once. Drobot launches himself forward using his thrusters, ramming and headbutting through players. There are a few headbutt attacks I could use for reference, but in this case, I thought of Kirby's, where he launches his whole body forward in a similar motion. Technically, I think his head counts as his body, but I could be completely wrong there. Next up, the smash attacks. Forward smash is our first move taken from Rob, where he fires an energy blast through his eyes. Drobot can fire lasers from his eyes as well, so naturally this move seemed like kismet for him in Smash. Down smash, we're back to Ridley, where he slams both of his wings down on the ground to hit players. Finally, up smash is where it gets more complicated. At first, I thought of Charizard's up smash, where he swings his wings upward, but then I considered Drobot's thrusters, which led me to Rob's up smash, where he flips upside down and uses his thrusters to blast players upward. Now, of course, Drobot wouldn't do the same handstand motion, but he could perform the same attack of blasting enemies above him with his thrusters. Now, I'm not 100% sold on this one due to the positioning of his thrusters on his body, but let me know what you guys think. For now, let's go with Charizard's. On to the aerials. First off, the forward and up air are once again taken from Ridley, a 3-pronged attack with his tail, and an upward thrust from both of his wings, respectively. The rest of the aerials are inspired from Rob, as they all involve blasting the enemy with their thrusters. As we've established, the positioning of Drobot's thrusters would be different from Rob's, but nevertheless, the attack itself remains unchanged. And of course, finishing off the basic moves, we have the grab and throws. For the grab and pummel, Drobot bites his target, chopping down on them for his pummel, much like Charizard, which leads perfectly to his forward throw, as it's a forward toss with his teeth, also taken from Charizard. Back throw is yet another Charizard-inspired move, but with something extra added to it. Drobot would toss them back with his teeth in the same manner, but immediately afterward, he fires about 3 lasers from his eyes at the launched target. This aspect is shared with Fox's back throw, so this attack would be a combination of Charizard's and Fox's moves. But this wouldn't be the last, as the down throw is another combination of the two fighters' corresponding attacks. Drobot would pin his opponent on the ground in a similar manner to Charizard, but instead of breathing fire, Drobot blasts them with his eye lasers, much like how Fox blasts his opponents. Lastly, the up throw is another clone of Charizard's. I'm realizing at this point that I use a lot more of Charizard's moves than I thought, possibly more than Ridley's. Regardless, it doesn't change much, as like I said earlier, they're both dragons. Back to the move, Drobot flies into the air and plummets towards the ground, pile driving the enemy. Can't forget the edge attack, which would probably be a simple headbutt. Now we can finally quit talking about the dragon fighters as we move on to the specials. Starting off with the neutral special, Drobot's primary attack, Mega Blasters, where he fires his signature eye lasers from said eyes. Some Smash veterans can probably see where I'm going with this. The move would essentially be another version of Fox's blaster. While unable to cause players to flinch, this attack would be an effective damage dealer. Next, his side special is his Wow Pow from Giants, Supreme Blade Gear. Drobot fires 2 Blade Gears which combine into what's called a Super Blade Gear, which can be controlled by Drobot to severely damage enemies. How it works is that the blade is summoned at a fixed distance from Drobot, and the gear can be controlled to freely roam around the level and dispatch enemies. In Smash, this is nerfed quite a bit. A good frame of reference for this move is Snake's Remote Missile, where he's able to direct the missile all around the stage. This, however, renders Snake unable to move, making him defenseless. The same traits are applied to Drobot and his Super Blade Gear, but with a few notable changes. For one, unlike the missile, which explodes on contact, the Blade Gear can keep damaging enemies as long as Drobot keeps it active, or in other words, as long as the special move button is being held. The Blade Gear does a decent amount of damage, launching players when they make contact. But to compensate, the Blade Gear can only move left or right, level to Drobot. This is definitely for the best, as I'm confident this move would be broken if the gear could move all over the place. Granted, I know being broken is Drobot's thing, but I would prefer not to have another Steve situation. Also, just as an aside, the gear will be rotated in a vertical position in Smash, just to give it the benefit of a bigger hitbox. Onto the up special / recovery, which, you guessed it, involves the usage of Drobot's thrusters. For a comparison, I'm not looking to Ridley, or Charizard, or any other winged fighter for that matter. No, my eyes are set on Diddy Kong's recovery. Obviously, I'm not referring to the design, but rather the characteristics of the move itself. Drobot would use his thrusters to boost himself upward or forward. Also like Diddy Kong's, this move can travel much further in horizontal directions. Lastly, Drobot's recovery would look quite different from Diddy Kong's, since the two look slightly different from each other, but for a visual reference, look no further than the recovery of the most broken character in Smash, Steve. Not the best comparison, but it illustrates my point well enough. Finally, Drobot's down special are his tactical blade gears. In Skylanders, Drobot simply fires them from his wings, ricocheting off surfaces and battering enemies. In Smash, this move received a couple changes. It now functions very similarly to Mega Man's Leaf Shield. After firing about 3 to 4 blade gears, they then orbit around Drobot for a few seconds before being fired, damaging players and blocking incoming projectiles. Additionally, I am also considering adding Drobot's explosive blade gears upgrade to this move, making them explode on contact with enemies and projectiles. Now for the final Smash, which is another clone, disappointingly. There doesn't seem to be any ultimate attack for Drobot I could find in Skylanders, so the best I have is an imitation of Rob's guided Robo Beam. Seems fitting given that we've referenced him several times already. One little difference for Drobot, however, instead of smaller lasers to knock opponents into Drobot's range, he fires his signature blade gears, after which he fires his own gigantic laser beam to eliminate his opponents, all done with the moveset onto the cosmetics. First up, his on-screen appearance is Drobot diving from the sky, landing on the stage. This is referencing his intro animation in his Giants trailer. Next are the taunts, his first one being a combination of 2 fighters, like before with the basic moves. Drobot roars with his wings spread out, like one of Ridley's taunts, during which his eyes flash bright lights, like one of Rob's taunts. His intro in his first trailer is also very similar to what I described, minus the lasers. Next taunt copies one of Charizard's, the one where he performs an aerial maneuver before landing with a roar. The last taunt is somewhat unique. Drobot flaps his wings and fires 2 blade gears, which circle around him before returning to his wings. Again, for reference, see the Giants trailer, but the boomerang aspect was added by me. This taunt from Mario inspired me to add that effect. Onto the crowd cheer, which is his catchphrase, blink and destroy, blink and destroy, blink and destroy. Maybe the crowd also chanted in a robotic tone, since Drobot's voice has a similar tone. Finally, there's the victory poses. First is basically the first few seconds of his intro in his Giants trailer. Drobot drops from the sky, firing lasers before landing. Second is the few seconds after that, where he fires 2 blade gears at the screen. For this pose, the camera would freeze frame on Drobot afterwards. Last pose takes elements from his intro in his first trailer, where he flies by while shooting lasers at the camera. Since there's no ending pose, however, we need to add some details to make this pose work. My mind went to one of Ridley's poses, where he flies towards the ground and drifts to a stop, striking a pose. Drobot's pose would inherit those same traits. He flies towards the ground while firing lasers, then drifts into a pose. Last but not least are the alternate costumes, which was difficult because there's only one official counterpart I could find, and that's Awakened Drobot from Ring of Heroes. Awakened Drobot possesses more armor to protect his body and more robotic enhancements for his helmet, wings, and tail. And that's everything from the games. The other 6 counterparts are brainstormed by yours truly. First is a red and yellow variant, which is the same color scheme as the Archeans, the ancient race of robots mentioned in previous videos. The wiki says that the technology Drobot uses is Archean. Next is a purple variant, which of course references the iconic Dragon Skylander Spyro, but it could also reference Ridley, seeing as we've mentioned him quite a lot in this video. which leads me to the next costume, an orange recolor, obviously referencing Charizard. Next is a gray recolor, referencing this costume of Ridley's, which in itself is a reference to Mega Ridley, a robotic recreation of Ridley from one of the Metroid games, which is the franchise Ridley originates from. Honestly, I just picked this one because it looked cool. The last two costumes reference the unique color schemes of some Arcean enemies, since we know that Drobot uses Arcean technology. First, there's a green and yellow variant, referencing the Arcean Jouster, and finally there's a brown and yellow variant, referencing the Arcean Duelist. We've referenced these same enemies in the Chop Chop video. And that's everything for Drobot. Overall, was he as powerful and broken as you expected in Smash? Let me know in the comments. I hope you all enjoyed and stuck around till the end, and I really appreciate you all watching. Next Skylander we'll be covering is another one with unconventional hands, like Prison Break. So, until then, I'll see all you wonderful people soon.